Okay. All right. I'd like to welcome you to this interview related to the Minority Business Bureau. And we have as our special guests Paul Middlebrooks and Delray Adams. And we have hosting Shanidra Matthews with C Portraits and Magazine. So we appreciate all of you attending. My name is Alan Jones. I'm with the Metropolitan Knoxville Airport Authority. And part of my role is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, helping advocate for minority, women-owned businesses and other veteran disabled businesses as well when opportunities arise for the airport on the construction side and the concession side. So today we just thought we would stroll down memory lane and go back several years to when an organization called the Minority Business Bureau did some advocacy work for businesses in the East Knoxville area. So we have Delray Adams and Paul Middlebrooks who were a part of that. And just like to ask you all, tell me a little bit about the Minority Business Bureau and how it promoted economic development for minority businesses in Knoxville. Who were some of the key staff, and what are you all doing now?
Okay, I'll start off. MBB was started, I believe, in 1972 as a nonprofit entity to assist local businesses expand and develop. It was a nonprofit entity, and I think it was probably established because of the urban renewal program that wiped out a lot of Black-owned businesses, not only businesses, but churches and homes and recreation centers and YMCA. All those businesses and institutions were bulldozed, basically. So it left a major hole in the Black community, especially the East Side. So that's what MBB was developed to address some of those issues.
Could you elaborate on some of those issues or the bulldozing experience for some of the people as myself that wasn't aware at that time as to what was happening at that time when you guys started?
Well, as I said earlier, urban renewal pretty much wiped out a lot of the existing businesses. So MBB was just one of many organizations that were trying to revive some of those businesses and restart those businesses. And we were a fairly small organization. So, but we did have an impact. We worked with other institutions. We worked with Urban League, NAACP. We had relationships with the banks, and we had TVA, Oak Ridge, and UT. So we had some supporters along the way.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Paul might add some things to that.
Well, we did a lot of loans as well, help companies get loans. Back then, a lot of small businesses knew how to operate their business, but not necessarily how to put together a business plan and how to go about engaging the banks. And so we had, several successes back then. One was Trip Chicken, was a franchise chicken operation there on Macaulay that we helped get started and obtain a loan. There were even smaller firms that one company was a record service. We helped them get a $50,000 loan with the SBA. And it was kind of funny, we knew how to put those plans together in the language that the banks wanted to see it in. And so we were sort of like a bridge between the banks and the businesses. We also did research for the companies. there was a company that sold shoes and hats. You remember that company, Dale? They sold shoes on the Parkway there, Market Square, and they opened up a shoe company. And we did the research. We did a survey of TV employees right there on the Market Square, and lo and behold, that information helped open up the shoe store back during that time.
Wow, that's amazing. That's needed now. Do you guys still do that as far as today?
Well,
Personally, myself, I'm retired.
yeah,
I'm still working.
and I moved on. Actually, you won't believe this. I actually went to work for the Small Business Administration, and after working with MBB for 5 years, but we were like a catalyst in a lot of different ways. We would help the companies go after contracts, and back then we had a gentleman by the name of Emmett Lord, and I would do the loans and et cetera, business plans. But he would help the companies go after contracts. And one of the big contracts back then was Knoxville College and the center, the Jobs Corps Center that they built. And that was a big contract. And we have several companies get those contracts in order to build and rehab those buildings. And so we were a catalyst. Dale, you remember we used to have these conferences every year where we would put buyers and sellers together, and we would get some of the agencies from Oak Ridge and Y12, and we would have a weekend long affair for minority businesses. And remember, one year we even had a Dress for Success business fair. To teach people how to dress as far as business, and the ladies liked it as well, but the main point of that conference was for small businesses to get the education, but also meet some of those large prime contractors and agencies. I believe you were the keynote speaker at one of those events, right, Dale?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and we've had the highest number we had was 700 people, and they came from as far as Memphis to those conferences. We had Senator Sasser one year. We had the congressman from Memphis one year, and so we always had a major speaker. We would start off on a Friday with the education, do a fashion show and dinner on Saturday, and wrap things up Saturday night. So we used to do that every year, remember? And we had it at the Hyatt, usually at the Hyatt Regency is where we would host it.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have an annual conference. And one year we had Marion Barry, former mayor of Washington, D.C. And then another year we had Harold Ford.
Harold Ford is who I was trying to think of.
Yeah, Harold Ford, who was a representative from the state of Tennessee at that time, whose son ran for senator a few years back.
Yes. You all were some heavy hitters back in the day. And there were two people that I recall that were businessmen during those days. And I wonder if you all helped them at all. Felix Gator, he was one of our local contractors, especially in East Knoxville. And also Walter Valentine, who was a designer. He was the architectural designer. Did you all do any business with them or help their businesses?
The building that we were housed in was owned by Gator Construction.
Okay.
So part of the building we had and the other part he had. So it was actually his building though. So we work very closely with Mr. Gator and the Gator Construction Company on several projects.
Okay,
One of the projects was we had a contractor assistance center. And so this center was housed in Mr. Gator's office, and contractors could come by and review plans from the city and those kind of things, and they would network on projects and those kind of things. So we were the impetus for a lot of that, and of course Mr. Gator was right there with us as well.
I know you
Fantastic.
guys are retired, but would you assist, because what you guys did is in the field of to where God has me going now. And if I could get some assistance from someone who has been there, done that, accomplished it, and where I can learn and mentor me, I feel like that will be a great asset for the journey that God has me on as of right now. I mean, every little detail you guys just described is exactly where he has me as of right now.
Now, I am working with SCORE, which is part of the SBA program. I do a few projects with them. But other than that, I am retired, so.
Well,
Paul is still working.
I'm still employed. I'm actually doing some of the same things I was doing at MBB. And I'm telling my age, but I was right out of college. When I had this, it was a great opportunity to work for the Minority Business Bureau for someone coming out of college. And so it was, I was very driven at that time because it wasn't about how much money I was getting paid. It was about helping the community. And it was, back then, and I'm not saying it's any different, but there was a big focus on helping each other and developing the community and improving people's lives. We worked quite a bit with hair salons, by the way. So there was, I can't think of their names, but they're over there on Cherry Street. We helped them get started. We have several businesses.
Is it the Bates family?
The Bates family, yes.
Okay.
And we have several businesses right there on Macaulay. And so we would help them with marketing strategies, advertising strategies, and those kind of things. And of course, they didn't have to pay for these services. And so they had somewhere they could go, and if nothing else, get an outside opinion on what they were trying to do.
Can you talk a little bit about, either one of you, about the capital development program? And I've got another question related to that. I recall at one time there was a black bank. Now, whether it was black owned or just black managed, I'm not sure. But there was one on Magnolia Avenue, if my memory serves correctly. Were you all at all involved in that or know about that? Can you share any history related to that?
Well, Magnolia Federal was ran by Mr. John Harshaw, a very dear friend of mine. And it provided, in fact, they worked directly with us to help prepare loan packages. There was a couple of gentlemen, what was the guy's name that worked there, Paul?
Well, I remember Harshaw, and then there was another gentleman who moved to the West Coast, and I can't think his name right.
Yeah, I can't think of his name, but we worked with him as well. But yeah, Magnolia Federal was the black bank for Knoxville. And I think it lasted, what, into the 90s before it closed? Is that right? You remember, Paul, when it closed?
Well, I moved from Knoxville back in the 80s, so I'm not sure. It was open when I left, but
yeah,
I'm not sure when it closed.
What led to the closing? Do you know?
I think there are a lot of things. John was the leading force to keep the bank afloat. And when John left, things just changed. You know, sometimes people are just right for the job. He was
Right.
right for the job. But when he
I see.
left, things went the other way.
Okay.
But
It
it was a
shows
good
how
institution.
important leadership is.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely,
have to have the right leadership at the right time and the right place. So,
absolutely. Now you mentioned Avon. Avon wasn't just chairman of the board. He was really the lifeblood of the organization. Avon worked at TVA, and TVA began to develop the minority enterprise development section of TVA. And it did a lot, not only in Knoxville, but in Memphis as well. So Avon was very instrumental in bringing in good people. He knew Marion Barry, he knew Harold Ford, he knew everybody because he was involved with SNCC back in the day.
wow.
He traveled the whole country working with Dr. King and other people. So he was able to bring in a lot of people to Knoxville to assist us.
Well, and that brings up a very important historical point because I knew Avon personally as well and knew that he was a civil rights activist.
Yeah.
So what you're describing is a situation where we had some civil rights advocates that moved to the mainstream in our TVAs and our MBBs and did some concrete, very constructive, use some constructive means to help build the community. So is that essentially what happened with Avon?
I would say, yeah. Yes. Paul, you might add something.
Well, we all were, like I said, trying to help the community. And what is the most positive way to do that? And sometimes, we need to do things to get people's attention about the wrongs in the world. But at some point, we also need to take time to help each other in terms of putting businesses together, hiring people, providing jobs and those kind of things. So we were focused on that end of it, trying to provide jobs for people and build wealth in the Black community.
Yeah, we also, Alan, we also had contact with people in Nashville. Was it Solomon, Paul? Gentleman named Solomon?
The minority, let's see, the state of Tennessee had a group, and we were connected to them. What they were trying to do, they had a string of organizations in each city, from Memphis to Nashville to Knoxville, and they were sort of the facilitator of information among all those groups. I can't think of the name of it. I think it was Minority Enterprise Development Center was the name of that group that was funded by the state of Tennessee.
Been a while ago, Alan.
Hey, well, this is rich information and, jogging your memories every time you share something that it's like another pearl or another diamond out of the treasury of your memories. So we appreciate any and all of this that you're sharing. One of the questions I have.
Let me add something. We did put together a newsletter that came out every quarter. And I do have copies of some of those newsletters, but the newsletter also provided information about, business development and business strategies. But it was also a way of uplifting people that were in business, to see these articles and to get encouragement from these articles that were written. And so that was another thing that the MBB provided as well. Not only information, but sometimes it was more about encouragement too. Hey, you can do this, and this is how you do it.
Awesome.
I think Alan, I sent you a copy of one of those.
Yes.
Yeah, I did send you a copy, right?
Yeah, I've got the January, February 1980 edition.
Okay, all right,
Issue number 25.
okay.
Yeah. And I'd appreciate any more information that you all have. I'd love to get more information, because part of the reason we're doing this interview is I wanted to kind of go back in time and look at what we have done in times past. And I knew there were some significant things done because I knew of the Minority Business Bureau, and I knew Paul, and I knew you, Del Rey, and Avon, and others, and some of the businessmen. I knew the general contractor, Felix Gator, knew him very well. And there are others in the community that have been doing great things. And my own recollection, because I was born on 5 Points on Ben-Hur, and of course we left and grew up in Chattanooga, but I came back. But I've seen a lot of changes, and my own family was affected by the urban renewal that happened there. But I'm glad to hear the opposite side of the story, that Minority Business Bureau was founded and established to become an engine of economic empowerment in our community.
Exactly.
What would you all say is the biggest difference between now and then in developing economic development and among minorities? What differences do you know, or are there any?
Well, I think this was a special time. This was right after the civil rights movement, as you know. And I think people of color, Black people specifically, were looking for ways to improve their positions within the community and to restart these businesses that were destroyed by segregation and urban renewal. So a lot of the programs came out of the federal government, and that helped. We actually had a loan, not a loan, but we were funded through the Community Development Office of the city of Knoxville. Of course, those monies came from the federal government. So there were a lot of different programs that were implemented as a result of urban renewal.
I would like to say we were the platform for a lot of things that are happening today. A lot of the progress that did happen on Macaulay and Magnolia, I think we had a lot of impetus for that. I think what's different now is, back then it was more segregation going on, and we were helping more companies within the Black community. I think now, as we see, Black-owned firms are doing businesses with all types of customers, not just Black customers. And so I think that's the major difference. That and then a lot of times you can't put your finger on what Black businesses are doing, because they're located in different areas. They're diversified in their client base. You call it crossover if you will, but they're going after opportunities regardless of where those opportunities are, and it's not necessarily based on the neighborhood they come from. And so back then it was more about the neighborhood that they were in, and that's where economic development and what we were doing, business development, was hand in hand, because we were trying to help the community from an economic standpoint, but we also was trying to make sure those businesses survive. And so, but now minority businesses are doing business with major corporations, with they're on social media. They have all types of avenues to reach their customers now, and it's not technically based just on the where they're located.
Okay.
What advice would you give, to wrap this up, what advice would you give someone in today's time during the pandemic, that, you know, it has inspired a lot of Black entrepreneurs to get out there during the pandemic. What advice would you give to them that is starting their minority-owned business?
Well, I'm gonna let Dale wrap it up, but my will be to have a business plan, and that sounds sort of simple, but a business plan helps you focus. A business plan helps you to develop a vision. It drives you to have objectives, and those objectives drives down to what you do on a daily basis and what you do on a monthly basis. And just to say that I'm going to start a certain business and I see other people doing things and, oh, I can do that as well, it's not a good way to start a business. You've got to determine what your strengths and weaknesses are, and utilize those strengths to start your own business and to have your own focus. And sometimes people want to do things because other people are doing it, rather than finding their own niche and what they're really good at, and what their capabilities are. And so if I would say, you know, the biggest recommendation would be develop a business plan. Now, a business plan can be on a napkin, okay? They're what you call a one-page business plan. I'm not saying that it's gotta be a 50-page document. I'm saying you want bullet points or key decisions made about who you're gonna market to, what strategies you're gonna use, what kind of funding that you need. Some of those key areas you've gotta make those decisions and not take it loosely. This is serious business. You know, people have lost their investments, and yes, people have survived. So, but it's not as easy as it looks. It does require you to do your homework.
I agree.
To add to that, Paul, I used to work for the city of Nashville, and I ran a small business program. And the mayor of the city at the time was Governor Bredesen. Anybody remember Bredesen?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, became governor.
Well, Bredesen was a wealthy businessman. And he said something to our group. He said, you know what? He said, of all the businesses that I've owned, I've never owned more than 20% of the business. So I spread the risk. So most Black people feel like they have to do it by themselves. So one thing we need to think about is, how about bringing in investors or partners to share the risk and the wealth? So that's the key factor right there. Consider bringing in other people and not just yourself. And then Paul and I both graduated from UT in marketing. And I will remember, even though it's been 40 years ago now, I remember one of our professors said, always remember when you're going to start a business, remember the 4 P's. Remember that, Paul?
Yes.
Okay. The 4 P's are: number 1, place. Where's the business going to be? Okay. Or you retail, wholesale, or your service, or whatever. The next one is product. What product are you going to sell, or service are you going to provide? Make sure you have that down pat and you know what the market is for that product or service. And then promotion. How are you going to promote the business? What are you going to do to advertise? Okay. And then the next one, and the last one, is price. How are you going to price the business? If the prices are too low or too high, then you're going to have a serious problem. But I would say always remember the 4 P's. And also always remember that bring other people in. And above all, do your research.
Research, yeah.
Yeah, we don't like to, sometimes call it competitor mates, but we don't want to share with our potential teammates. That, you know, we got to get away from that. We got to learn to network and see what another person or another company brings to the table that might be helpful. If it's nothing more than encouragement. You know, we used to have lunches that we would sponsor, of women-owned businesses, and they would get a chance to network among themselves and, you know, what are some of the problems they have? And sometimes it can just be encouragement, but then there are other times where they can say, okay, I like what you bring to the table. I like what you bring to the table. Let's do this together. So networking is one of those things that we tend to mistrust and those kind of things. But I think it's important that we learn to network with potential teaming partners as well as network with our customers. Now, one last thing I want to add to what Dale was saying is the financial piece. And one of the things we have a tendency to do sometimes is not look at what's required to start this business. What are the initial capital requirements? And when you develop that list, the list of money that you need, how much of, you know, you want to have 2 to 3 months of working capital. I mean, how are you going to pay your employees or survive the business until you start reaching the sales level that you need to reach? But again, I don't want to get too technical because some people say, well, I'm just not going to start a business. There is a balance where at some point you're going to leap and you're going to make that judgment that, hey, I'm going to do this some kind of way. But at the same time, do some study, do some planning, and just don't make that leap strictly out of emotion. But once you develop that that budget, and you know, okay, these are my expenses. I gotta have these expenses in order to satisfy my customer, in order to do the work, et cetera, et cetera. You add those expenses up on a yearly basis, and that's how you come up with your projections. Because you know, hey, I gotta, if nothing else, I gotta break even. And in order for me to make a profit and pay for my supplies, this is what my revenue needs to be. But it all starts, believe it or not, with knowing what your expenses are.
Well, I thank you guys for your time and for all the information and everything that you guys have given us for this interview. It was very enlightening for me, and I'm sure it was enlightening for everyone that is watching.
So Paul and Delray, thank you guys for participating. I'll be reaching out to each one of you to get more follow-up information and research. But thanks for taking time out of your day to join us for this interview, and we'll make it available to you as well through Shanidra. So thanks again. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and your weekend, and we'll reconnect on down the road.
Thank you, Shanidra. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Paul.
And thank you all. And this was, believe it or not, very difficult because there's so much that happened during that time. I need to sit down and make a list of what all happened one day. But I think once we go through these files, Dale and I are going to go through these